This is your life, and I'm winging my way, so to speak, to the foyer of Thames Television Studios at Euston, where there's quite a bit of fun going on involving a lot of people. Sally James from Tiswas, you can probably see. Keith Chegwin from Swap Shop, and lots of boys and girls who are on last year's, the first ever Royal Variety Show for children. They've come along to chat about this year's, which takes place in May, on the children's television programme CBTV. Now, they're going to talk about it. That charity, by the way, last year raised £50,000, and they expect to talk about it on this programme with the man whose idea it was in the first place. And he's just arrived with one of the most unpredictable handfuls that have ever appeared on television. And when I say unpredictable, I really know what I'm talking about. And you'd be surprised what a nervous little bird there is underneath this. Here we go.
Very nice of you.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, it's Sally. Hello.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Oh, he's great friends with you. He
not
likes
too friendly.
you. Yeah, look.
Can you stamp my ticket?
Are you going on as well?
Yes. That's
Certainly
okay.
stamp
Thank you very
yours.
much. Thank you.
Bless you. And it's not Tiswas, it's the other one. It's CBT.
CB.
Yeah,
Right.
CB.
Okay.
Thank
Another
you
one for CBTV.
I know you as well.
Hello,
Yeah. Oh, Doc. Let's have a look. Give us a
Today you
ticket.
have a job here.
Yeah, we have to do that. Swap Shop. This is a ticket for Swap Shop.
No, that's CBTV.
No, it's not. Clear off.
No, it's
Next, please.
It's CBTV.
No,
Ross.
it's Swap Shop.
That
You
is-
can't
this
come in here
is
with
a
a Swap Shop
CBTV ticket.
Look, it was stamped.
Would you stop that? Just get off me feet, will you?
There you go.
Will you get that bird off me? Yeah.
I'll come in here with a ticket for Swap Shop. I told you that.
What's the commissioners like in here?
Hey, hold it, Emu. Emu, hold it, Emu. May I please have a little word with Rod?
What is it?
Yes, Rod. Oh, boy. Hello, Emu.
You can't come in here either.
Yes, I can, because tonight, Rod Hull, this is your life.
You're You knew about it.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you. Boys and girls, thank you very much.
I didn't believe it.
If I can keep this book in one piece, Emu, we'll take him back to the theatre and spring some very fresh surprises on you.
You've done it already.
I think we have.
Is this true?
I must say thanks again to Sally James and, of course, and Keith. I don't know how you survived that haul over the counter.
Lot.
And the boys of the Wandsworth School Choir and the girls of the Arts Educational School for their help back there. And, Rod, every success with this year's Children's Royal Variety Show in May. I must say that Emu seems to enjoy royal occasions, but judging by the last time he met royalty, you'll be thinking twice before inviting him backstage. You'll remember what happened when he spotted the bouquet carried by Her Majesty the Queen Mother.
That's right, yes, he bit it.
He did. Well, he's a great show-off, of course, and we've been hearing why Emu loves the cameras so much.
That's because Emu was actually hatched in a television studio in Australia.
Yes, you thought you was at home in Milstead. Kent, your wife, sure. And with her, your daughters from your first marriage, Debbie with her husband Philip, and Danielle, and stepdaughter Katrina. Yes, we really caught him, sure. Rod presented, thanks to you, presented his own children's television program in Australia, didn't he?
That's right. Two children sent in an egg, and so he used to put this egg on the radiator, and it grew, and suddenly Emu was born.
Well, now, Rod, something else you don't know about what happened after you left home today. 3 more special people in your life decided to see if they could copy that rare feat. I'll resist saying emulate. And if you look at that screen, there they are, your younger children, 4-year-old Toby, 3-year-old Amelia, and Oliver, who's 2.
Daddy, to make little new for you, Daddy. Bye, Daddy.
And they're going to try and hatch their emu eggs. Thank you, Toby, Amelia, and Oliver, and good luck with that hatching.
Thank you.
Danielle, Toby there, whom we're just watching, was the first boy in the family. What was your dad's reaction?
Well, he rushed home from hospital and put a flag up in the garden.
And then what, Katrina?
He came in with champagne and donuts, and we had that for breakfast.
Well, now, in a way, Debbie, all that should be happening again in a couple of months.
Yes, it is. I can't guarantee it's going to be a boy, but Daddy's going to be a granddad.
You mustn't say that now, dear.
Well, Rod Hull, this is your life, and you were born on August the 13th, 1935, not in Australia like Emu, but in the Isle of Sheppey, Kent.
Yes.
While still a youngster, you move with your late mother and your father to nearby Sheerness, where you go to Delamark Road School, then to County Technical School, and start work as an apprentice electrician at the local co-op.
That's
Now,
right.
one winter's morning, there's severe flooding in your neighbourhood, but you're determined to get to work.
And that's when you looked out of the window, then turned to me and said, "Would you mind very much taking your shoes and socks off?"
Recalling that damp day 27 years ago, your dad, Len. Len, why did Rod ask you to take off your shoes and socks?
Well, the only piece of high ground to get onto the main part of the town was across the road, which was just about 2 to 2.5 feet of icy cold water. And I was conned into piggybacking him across the road onto the ground. But it was cold going over with ice on the top, but coming back, it was bloody cold.
Thank you, Len. Well, now, Len is a proud dad these days, but you were very proud of him, Rod, when, during the war, he was posted overseas, and you wrote on the back of this picture, "To Daddy from your son, Rodney, September the 10th, 1943. And, Len, you treasured that photograph.
I did. I carried it in my pocket all the way through the Burma campaign.
Thank you.
Well, now, as a youngster, Rod, you joined the local St. John Ambulance Brigade Drum and Bugle Band.
Oh,
The
don't.
bugle is your chosen instrument, and you can certainly play it. And one day, you're on parade with the band at Sheerness, the leader strikes up, but the sound that came from your bugle was not quite what he expected.
No.
I certainly didn't expect.
Band leader that day, 30 years ago, Bill Jarvis. Bill, not a very pleasant din. What had gone wrong with Rod's bugle playing?
No, don't tell him.
Do tell him.
Well, on that day, the poor Rod, the band struck up.
And a bird was flying over the top.
Well, yes.
It did something on the mouthpiece.
Is that right?
Yes, it's quite right. He had a marvellous message, and this poor message was sent from the Seagull, landed right on the mouthpiece,
Yes.
and that's why he ended up with the sour note.
Yes.
Still playing. Thank you, Bill Jarvis. Now, Len, in those days, you were a keen member of a local concert party, which Rod also joined. It was called the M&D Concert Party. Now, what did that stand for?
Well, that was the Maidstone and District Concert Party, and the Maidstone District stood for the Maidstone District Bus Company,
You
of
mustn't
which I
advertise.
was a conductor with. Pardon?
You mustn't advertise.
You were a bus conductor then, Len, I know. But, Rod, you were a member of that amateur concert party for 4 years. And I wonder if you remember how the company used to end their shows.
Oh, we must have missed the last bus home. It's a long, long way to roam. Toodaloo, toodaloo, take your places in the queue. We must have missed the last bus home.
Old pals from the Maidstone and District Bus Company concert party 30 years ago, Cyril Cackett, B.T. Merrick, Bill Jimmy Edwards, and Red Wormhole. Well, in 1956, Rod, the whole family...
Finished now, because it's awful.
We can't top that, I know. So in 1956, Rod, not because of the concert party, the whole family emigrates to Australia, and you get a job as a lighting engineer with one of the major TV stations. You wrote comedy material for that Maidstone concert party, and while you're working at the TV studios in Sydney, you hear a lot of comedy sketches and reckon you could write them just as well. So you start to submit a few sketches of your own that were better. And you also get on the screen performing the odd comedy spot yourself.
Yes.
And pretty soon it becomes a full-time job. And after deep digging down under, we can take a look at one of your earliest successes. It ran for 150 episodes. Here's Rod Hull in The Caper Cops.
Oh, what? Can you believe that? I don't remember this one.
You know, Rod, long before Emu, you were already a success in Australia, and you can afford a sentimental trip back home to Kent to look up old friends. For one of them, that visit changes the whole course of his life.
Yes, almost overnight. From being an engineer in Sheerness, I became a television writer in Sydney.
And it's from his home in Sydney we've flown him tonight, your old pal, Bill Wallace. Bill, you've actually been Rod's best pal since your very first days at infant school, right?
5 years of age. And from 5 years of age, we went to every school and every class together. And then we left school and joined the same company together. And even joined that concert party together. And we had a comedy act. Well, we thought it was a funny comedy act, didn't we? But
I don't know about it now.
I don't know about it now.
Tell me, Bill, what did Rod have to say when he visited you back from Australia?
Well, he convinced me into, going back to Australia with him. He said there was a future out there as a writer, and I was a co-writer. And next thing, I was down at Australia House, and Rod was signing out all the forms to sponsor us out there. And my wife and I went out and joined him, and I've been in television out there ever since, 17 years now.
I can't believe you're here.
He is here, and there's another special reason for celebration tonight, isn't there?
Yes, you've probably forgotten this, but 25 years ago today, you were my best man.
Yes, and who'd have dreamed we'd all have a chance to celebrate together tonight?
Yes, we've flown her from Australia too, Bill's wife, Mavis. Thank you, and congratulations, Mavis and Bill Wallace.
Listen, I must talk to you.
Come back. Back in Australia, Rod, you're spotted on television by a famous English comedy actor who's on a cabaret tour, and you're delighted when he invites you to become part of his act. And we're going to Sydney now, where 12,000 miles from the Mile End Road, we can hear from Alf Garnett himself, your old pal, Warren Mitchell.
Yes. I don't believe it. I really do it.
Yeah, well, that was my impersonation of Rod Hull doing his impersonation of Esther Williams. G'day, Rod. How you going, mate? Rumour has it that you're on your way out to Sydney in a few weeks' time. I've arranged to be in Perth, which is 2,500 miles away from you and that ghastly emu, that Jewish pigeon. Anyway, we had a marvellous time going around Australia. It could have been... we played some pretty fearful places and stayed at some pretty fearful pubs. We played on some pretty fearful pianos that had come over here with Captain Cook. It was all enormous fun. I don't know how long we spent together, 5 or 6 years touring around Australia and New Zealand. And you were a very good friend to me, and I remember those times with great pleasure and bore the arse off people reminiscing about them now. See you either there or here and have a marvellous party. G'day, mate.
Thank you, Warren Mitchell in Sydney.
Amazing.
Well, after he sees you with Emu, Warren advised you to try your luck in England. Advice you take and set up home and business headquarters on a houseboat at Kingston upon Thames. Your hopes were high. And Debbie, what happened next?
Well, I arrived down there one weekend, only to find the boat had disappeared. I later found out that it had broken away from its moorings the night before, crashed into the bridge and sunk. But fortunately, Dad wasn't on it at the time.
And I got a bill from the Thames Water Board for about £125 for salvage, which is even worse.
Well, fortunately, not only were you not on board, but it wasn't long before you got working again. Your first television appearance in Britain, in fact, comes in 1972 on a show for ITV called Saturday Live. The star host is someone with whom you become great pals.
That's right.
Oh, yes, I love you, Rod. But if I see that emu, I'll just say, shut these doors.
No emu, so you can come in. Star comedian, the Generation Games, Larry Grayson.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Larry.
Nice to see you.
Now, most people by now, Larry, have got used to Rod and his emu, but that was 10 years ago,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, no, I know. Hang on. Well, you see, Eamon, when we did Saturday Variety, they said this fella's coming on with an emu. I didn't know what an emu was. And they said he's coming on, this emu, and he's going to talk about the mating call of the emu. Remember, Rod? So I'm sitting in this chair, and out he comes with this thing. And we're just talking. I thought, well, what's going to happen, you see? And I'm very interested about it all. And then all at once, it goes like, and I move sharpish. And before I knew what I was doing, I was on the floor, and this thing was all wrapped around me. And we've been friends ever since. But after that, it was such a sensation, you know, because, it's a new thing. And so we went to Margate for a summer season together, went to the Coventry Hippodrome in a birthday show, went to Bristol in pantomime, and we worked together such a lot. And even on the Generation Game, he was there behind the door. I love Rod very dearly, but I can't stick that bird.
Thank you, Larry Grayson. Thank you. Well, after those appearances with Larry, Rod Hull and Emu started to open quite a few doors, or in Emu's case, knock down a few more doors. Not only do you get your own show, but you guest on some of the most popular shows in Britain, not the least memorable of which was this appearance on Michael Parkinson's Chat Show.
You're all right, aren't you?
Why is it so aggressive?
It's not aggressive.
Not much.
Not all the time.
Lunatic.
It's not.
Well, somewhat uncharacteristically at a loss for words there was Mike. But if you keep looking at that screen, Rod, you'll hear what he had to say when I invited him to come along tonight.
I don't want to hear, will you?
Hello, Eamon. Hello, Rod. I hope you're having a smashing time. No, I'll rephrase that. I hope you're having a very pleasant time there in the studio with This Is Your Life. In spite of all that's written and rumoured about us, the fact is, Rod, that I think you're a marvellous performer. I really do. I think you're a splendid entertainer. Oh, I've always thought that. Ever since the first time I ever saw you many, many years ago. I'd love to be with you in the studio. I really would. But the fact is that nothing would persuade me to get within 1,000,000 miles of that bloody bird. Right? Are you sure, by the way, that it didn't used to play full back for Barnsley?
Thank you, Michael Parkinson. But of course, Rod, those antics with Emu have had audiences falling about laughing not only on television, but on stage as well.
And wherever we work with Rod, the madness is catching.
From your television show, the Emu Broadcasting Company, and long-running Emu in Pantoland, Barbara New, and with her from those shows, Tom Chatto, Michael Barrington, Carl Wayne, and from your latest TV show, Emu's World, Carol Lee Scott. Barbara, you were, of course, Betty, the tea lady.
Yes.
But how could, apart from that, could you just explain about Rod's madness being catching?
Well, let me give you an example. Like when he and I and other members of the cast would go to rehearsal by taxi, and if we saw a lonely pedestrian about to cross at the traffic lights, all crouching on the floor of the taxi, and when they came close to getting up and shouting, "Hi!"
Thank you very much, Barbara, Tom, Michael, Carol Lee Scott. Well, Rod, of course, your longtime colleague in Emu's Broadcasting Company's television show is a great personal pal who's in pantomime in Nottingham tonight. But if you look at that screen, you'll see he's got himself all dressed up in the part he played with you as Billy, the odd job man who never knew what was going to happen to him next. Of course, comedian Billy Dainty.
Oi! Hello, Eamon. Hello, Rod. Well, what a good job I'm not down there. Tell a few home truths about you, like these socks. Do you remember, in Canada? Got the toes out so you could nick my cab on the last night, didn't you? Yeah. And what about that stink bum underneath the princess's seat in pantomime? Bring the smell on me. Best of all, though, those wonderful days of recording EBC One in Manchester, when all those people in the canteen, all the people in the bar thought they were going through the change of life as they kept drinking hot flushes. But it was really you, with this lighter, under the seat of their trousers. They were slowly going warmer, warmer, until they shouted, "Oi!" But I like to pay tribute to you and that overstuffed blue tit of yours with the spaghetti legs, and say thanks for all the memorable hours we spent together and all the memorable hours that you've given enjoyment to many, many people all over the world.
Thank you, Billy Dainty in Nottingham. Rod, that program of yours had millions of children enchanted, but I wonder if you remember when you were only 10, when you had a regular audience of 1, someone very close to you held spellbound when she was just 8 years old.
And you had me truly believing there were fairies at the bottom of the garden.
Her home for the past 24 years has been Australia, but we've flown her here tonight, your only sister, Joan. Joan, what made you think as a little girl, there you are with Rod, that the fairies were at the bottom of your garden?
They really were. Every day there'd be a note. It'd be about that size in tiny, tiny little notes, little writing. And they'd be things that would come true that day. And it was years later that I discovered that he wrote them and he was the postman.
But Rod, just before we close, a little bit of magic of our own. Wonder how those 3 youngest children of yours are getting on. I can hear them trying to hatch their own emu. Oh, come on. Hey! I think... Let Daddy pick them up. Hello. Rod Howe, this is your life.
I can't believe it.